he won his first Super Bowl 9 months after our first conversation, um, is to treat the setbacks, the mistakes, the slings and arrows of outraged fortune, as Shakespeare would put it. You have to treat them as temporary. So please, ladies and gentlemen, let yourself be emotional about
Dr. Nate Zinsser. I've been so looking forward to having you on since I saw you as a keynote speaker at CRAI Summit a couple years ago. And I didn't get to meet you in person. I guess you had COVID then, but still, I was glued to the screen. And actually, I was working, so I didn't get to hear everything. And so ever since then, I've been wanting to get you on the show because I just think everything you have to say about confidence and building confidence and how to rebuild it, and it's key for our industry. Every real estate entrepreneur needs to really, it's a tough business. And so this can really help a lot. But let me kind of give everybody a little bit of your background. You're former director of West Point's performance psychology program. You've also helped professional athletes. I love the Eli Manning story. NCAA athletes and business execs become peak performers. What an interesting background. What made you decide to become a performance psychologist?
because of my own fascination with human performance as a middle schooler, a high schooler, and a collegian. I was deeply invested in my own pursuit of success athletically. And I made the transition from my local elementary school to a private boys' school for as I went from elementary to middle school. And at my new school, there was a powerhouse soccer program. Year after year, the team was really good. And ironically, it was the only team at the school that was really good year after year after year. Um, and this is back in the day, 50 something years ago, when high school athletes typically played at least two and sometimes three sports, which meant that a critical mass of these wonderful soccer players would then move to the basketball court or the baseball field or the lacrosse field. But once they left the soccer field, they were just average.
Yeah.
What was it about the soccer situation that seemed to bring about so much success? And what I learned through my years, what I observed, was the ability of this particularly wonderfully gifted and disciplined head soccer coach to create an expectation of success in young men. We're talking, 12-year-old seventh graders.
Mhm.
He was able to communicate through his assistant coaches and through the entire communication process of the school that if you, as a young kid, stay with the sport, invest a little time in the summer, you got a pretty good chance of being a starter when you're in 11th or 12th grade. So he was able to create a shared expectation, a shared belief that we would indeed be good year after year. Lo and behold, we were. And no other team at the school had that same degree of belief and expectation. So that was my first exposure to the whole psychology, the role of the mind in human performance. And I was fascinated by that. I explored it as best I could throughout my high school career. I learned later in grad school there is a specific effect in education. It's called the Rosenthal effect. The way a teacher communicates to a student expectations about how well they can perform, what kind of grades they can get, that communicated expectation really makes a difference in terms of the effort that said student will invest. And of course, the effort that the student invests has a tremendous impact on the results that that student or athlete or real estate professional achieves. So much of the results that we achieve are a direct result of the expectations and the beliefs that we have about ourselves to begin with. That's how I got into this whole process.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, um, I'm not even through reading the book, but Confident Mind that you wrote. It should be a textbook for every real estate entrepreneur. It's really a step-by-step guide to becoming a peak performer in real estate. And so I don't think I've put so many notes. It's taken me forever to get through it because of all the notes that I've put together. And, I thought this would be great for our agents as well. I want to kind of start from the very beginning. What is your definition of confidence?
My definition differs a little bit from what you might find in a dictionary.
Right.
I define confidence in a very sort of functional, active perspective, and I refer to it as a sense of certainty about yourself that allows you to bypass a lot of conscious deliberation and simply execute your various skills more or less unconsciously. So think of it this way. It's a belief that you know something or you can do something so well that you don't have to think about it a whole lot while you're doing it. And it emerges from you more or less naturally. All the worries and concerns and overanalysis while one is performing really interferes with one's ability to see the world, take in the right information, to retrieve from their collected experience the right response, and then to get that right response back out to your speech if you're giving a talk or negotiating, to your hands and your feet if you're playing golf or tennis. We want to remove as much of that unnecessary overanalysis, judgment, self-criticism as possible, which allows our well-trained skills, our knowledge, to express itself most effectively.
Well done. Is it something that we're born with, or is this something that we learn?
I think it is mostly learned.
Okay.
Okay? I think it is mostly a learned phenomenon. Um, I had a wonderful experience that I recount in the book of meeting a young lady who was training for an Olympic team
Mm-hmm.
who looked me in the eye and said, I could use a lot more confidence. So we went to work on her confidence. Again, explaining this definition, looking at some ways to build it up, looking at some ways to protect it when, life throws you a punch in the face and you experience a setback. 14 months later, after she said, I could use more confidence, that young lady, Jill Bakken, won the gold medal in the Olympics at women's bobsled in the 2002 Salt Lake City Winter Olympic Games. She jumped out of the sled after that gold medal winning run, and the crowd is going crazy and they're waving American flags. And Mary Carrillo from CBS Sports walks over to her and her partner, Vanetta Flowers, sticks the microphone in their face and says, yeah, this is a really wonderful moment. This is gold medal USA. You were the second team. You were the USA sled number 2. You weren't expected to be here. How did you do it? And the only thing that Jill Bakken said at that moment was, well, we just had confidence, so that's what we had to go with. So apparently between the 14 months where she said, I could use a lot more, and her gold medal performance in February of 2022, apparently she grew some confidence to the point where she could say, well, one of the reasons why we did so well is we were confident. So I guess it is a learned thing, Joe.
Yeah.
So much so it's a learned process that everybody can get better at if you practice.
How did she learn that though? I mean, was it just repetition from what happened? What was that 14 months? What really happened to gain that confidence?
She learned to pay more attention to her small gains, her small progress, than she paid attention to her setbacks and her difficulties. It
Mm-hmm.
was basically shifting the amount of emotional energy that one gives to, you know, life's inevitable difficulties and paying more attention to, okay, I worked hard here today. I made these gains. I seem to be making progress overall, and I'm talking to myself more about what I want and how I can get it than I am talking to myself about, oh, all the things I have to correct and all the things I'm not doing well. It's a matter of shifting your quality of thinking so that it is more aligned with the actual outcomes that you want. I want to have an explosive start. I want to be clear and accurate and consistent in each turn. Okay, that's what I want. So I have to think of myself as doing those things. I am explosive. I am focused. I persevere through difficulty. I thrive in bad weather conditions where other people are beginning to get upset. It's aligning your thinking with the outcomes that you want rather than being preoccupied primarily with all the obstacles and difficulties. Yes, you have to know what those obstacles and difficulties are. Yes, you have to spend some time preparing to address them. But you have a sense of yourself as rising above all that. And that is something that you practice and get used to. It's a paradigm shift for most of us.
Sure. Yeah. You have one of my favorite Sun Tzu quotes: victorious warriors win first and then go to war, while defeated warriors go to war and then seek to win. And that is so true.
That is so true. And in fact, my idea for the title of the book was just the first victory, referring to that initial decision. Yes, I'm going to dominate before I step into the arena. Um, we decided to change the title to The Confident Mind. But I was really impressed by that particular chapter of Sun Tzu because it is so appropriate. You have to have this sense that I am going to come out on top of this negotiation, that I'm going to work through this process. I have that conviction about myself and about my skills, and then I enter the arena. Rather than entering the arena and hoping that my skills, my knowledge, my experience are sufficient to the moment.
Yeah. You know, let's talk about first victory, because I think that's so important. And I love the Eli Manning story. Can you kind of break that down for us?
Sure. I met Eli Manning in the early months of the year 2007. He had been in the NFL for 3 years. He'd been pretty good, but he had not fulfilled the very, very high expectations that a number one draft pick
Yeah.
in a very vicious media market, New York, has to face. Um, so I was connected to Eli, and he took very quickly to a lot of these ideas. He was a curious, motivated guy to learn whatever he needed to learn in order to become the best player possible to fulfill his dreams. So we worked very closely over the next few years. He won his first Super Bowl 9 months after our first conversation. Um, and then we continued to work together. And then in the summer of 2011, at his training camp, he was asked, well, are you a top 10 quarterback? To which he said, yeah, I think I am. And then the sports reporter says, well, are you in Tom Brady's class? And Eli scratched his chin for a moment and said, yeah, I think I am. And by the way, Tom Brady is a really great quarterback. So he gave Mr. Brady props. Now, Eli's polite but honest assertion that he is that good uh, pissed off a lot of people. Because at that point, he had only one Super Bowl victory to his credit. At that point, I think Tom Brady had it three, maybe even four. And so, how is it that Eli can consider himself to be in Tom Brady's class? Well, the fact of the matter is, if you're going to put yourself in that arena, you better think that you've got all the technique, all the skill, all the ability. If you don't think that you are at that level, if you have not won that first victory, as we're talking about, well, then you invite all kinds of fear, doubt, worry, and hence muscular tension, and hence mediocrity into your performance. So basically, every NFL quarterback really owes it to himself and to his teammates to feel that he is the best at what he does. That in that moment, I am enough, I am sufficient. That's the essence of the first victory. And it applies to all of us, whether we're NFL quarterbacks or whether we're emergency room surgeons, whether we're entrepreneurs creating uh, a product and a platform, or whether we're real estate professionals developing property. We owe it to ourselves to bring that certain level of assurance. And please don't confuse it with outspoken arrogance in the sense that you're better than everybody and you're above the law and you don't have to follow the rules and you can be disrespectful. No, 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 no. I mean, Eli Manning is a very respectful gentleman, but on the inside, he has the sense of himself as being very, very, very competent and capable of accomplishing whatever is necessary.
I mean, confidence is crucial, right? But it could lead to overconfidence, right? How do we keep ourselves from being overconfident? Because in commercial real estate, we see some brokers that are really overly confident, and you hear about it. But where is that fine line?
That fine line really basically starts with you putting in the work.
Right.
Okay. I don't know if overconfident is the right term, but maybe misplaced confidence is the right term. Okay.
Yeah.
If you have not put in the work to understand your market, to understand all the variables affecting a particular transaction, if you're going in there trying to sling a lot of bull and persuade people without really having all your ducks in a row, well, then you've stepped over the line from being confident about yourself to being sort of an arrogant snake oil salesman.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so work really hard. Take pride in the work, take pride in your preparation, and then trust that preparation in the moment of truth when you're negotiating or basically in your particular arena.
How do we protect that confidence?
Well, you see, the thing is, we're going to work hard. We're going to reflect on our work. We're going to reflect on our past successes. We're going to develop that sense of certainty about ourselves day after day after day after day.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, day after day after day after day, we're going to encounter our own human imperfections. We're going to encounter the imperfections of any teammate we might have. And we're going to encounter, I guess, entropy is the big term. The universe sort of throws stuff at you.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to make mistakes. Other people are going to make mistakes. There are going to be factors outside of your control. Market factors, weather factors, political decisions, all these things that happen that can negatively influence your work. And because they negatively influence your work, they can wear down this sense of certainty that you work to achieve. So you have to protect it. It's like, it's like you have a bank account and you got to have some safeguards so that crooks can't come in and rob it. Right?
Sure.
You have to be able to think of these setbacks that take place as being a temporary thing. Yeah, it happened, but you want to keep it in that proper time perspective. It happened that time. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to keep happening.
Yeah.
And you have to be very disciplined in how you think about a setback. Yes, it happened, but just that one time or just those few particular times. If you don't think of them in that way, by definition, you're basically saying, okay, It's going to happen over and over again. Here we go again. This same thing keeps going. Yeah, and
Yep. So, yeah,
it's
yeah.
so easy to do that. So
Mhm.
one of the lockdowns for your constructive, confident attitude is to treat the setbacks, the mistakes, the slings and arrows of outraged fortune, as Shakespeare would put it. You have to treat them as temporary. Secondly, you also have to treat them as rather limited in terms of where they occurred. It occurred just there in that particular conversation or that particular setting. It applies to that particular process, and it doesn't mean that any other settings or any other processes are necessarily going to be affected or polluted by it. It's very simple, very tempting. Oh, this problem occurred. That means we're going to have problems elsewhere.
Mm.
Be careful about that. Keep
Yeah.
it in the space where it occurred, as well as keeping it in the time that it occurred. That's a nice 1-2 punch against these sort of attacks on one's confidence. And then the third dimension of protection is to be very careful about how you personally identify with a setback. So many of us have been encouraged to kind of define ourselves in terms of our difficulties and setbacks and failures. But when a failure occurs, when a mistake is committed, when a setback takes place, rather than think, oh boy, maybe I don't have what it takes, you might be thinking, okay, it happened. That's unfortunate, but that doesn't tell the truth about me.
Right.
That difficulty is non representative. It does not tell the truth. So I have to keep my mistakes and difficulties temporary, limited, non-representative. TLN is the code word. You know, I've had hockey players wrap a piece of white tape around their stick and with a big black Sharpie write TLN, so that when they come back to the bench at the end of their shift, they've got that reminder. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
whatever didn't go well out there is temporary and limited, and it doesn't tell the truth about you. Get ready to go out there and play a great shift. You know, um,
Yeah.
your confidence will be under attack. It's just the nature of the imperfect universe that we all inhabit. You got to push back. You got to fight back for it.
And learn
Hope
from
that
them. I
helps.
mean, self doubt and imposter syndrome. They're terrible. They're terrible beasts, right? You've got to
Yes,
learn from those mistakes.
it's everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. In our industry, you go out on a pitch, you don't get it. You work so hard. It's hard. Self doubt will start creeping in, and it's very hard. But you learn from it, and it can't. It's not. It's not you. It's the circumstance, and
Hmm.
go on to the next one.
Yes,
I
so
see it.
yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
it's very important when you experience those setbacks to not get sucked into the negativity. You have to sort of, okay, well, I didn't get the deal didn't go through. Let's be very almost detached from that experience emotionally. Okay, what actually happened? What can I learn from it? Now that I've learned something from that experience, am I not indeed better qualified for my next one? So paradoxically, you can actually gain some confidence by learning about something that didn't work. And that's a wonderful way to operate.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there is a well known story, I think it's a true story, regarding Thomas Edison, the great inventor, whose gifts to the world we're enjoying right now. And the story goes that he was trying to develop a storage battery to contain this weird new electricity stuff that people were just beginning to understand. And it took him hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of attempts to succeed in creating a battery. Um, And at one point in that developmental process, somebody said, "Hey, what's the matter? Why don't you have this done yet? Don't you know anything?" And apparently Edison's reply was, "Yeah, I know 400 or 500 things that don't work. What do you know?" Every one of those failed attempts at the battery, Thomas Edison was able to learn from. And so every little quote unquote failed attempt just brought him closer to a solution. And so he was almost energized by his quote unquote failures. It means I'm learning something. It means I'm getting closer. Good for me. I'm better now because he was able to learn from each setback. That is a really powerful way to be.
Nate, there's a part in your book that I absolutely love the story. It was Jim Carrey. He was in, I believe it was Dumb and Dumber that you watched, which surprised me. You're watching Dumb and Dumber, by the way. But his character Lloyd and his 1 in a million shot. Can you talk about that?
Yes, in that movie, there's this scene where Jim Carrey's character, a gangly, unsophisticated, and not very handsome man, is pursuing a romantic relationship with a very beautiful woman. And at one point, the woman says to him, "Well, your odds of us becoming a long-term couple are really, really bad." And he says, "You mean bad like 1 out of 100?" She says, "No, like 1 out of 1 million." And Lloyd's reaction to that 1 out of 1 million is not one of disappointment and despair. It's one, "Oh, I've got a chance." And he got really excited about that. And he demonstrates in a very extreme way the capacity that we all have as human beings to filter our thoughts and to make sure that we're hanging on to the thoughts and the memories that bring up enthusiasm for our work and our lives. It's a very extreme example,
Mm-hmm.
1 chance out of 100, but he's totally invested in that one chance. And I always make the point when I give keynotes to audiences, and I'll often show that very same film clip, and I'll say, "I'm pretty sure everybody in this audience has much greater professional experience, has much greater innate talent, has a much better support network and team function around him or her than this strange looking Lloyd guy. But is your filter as good? Are you able to latch on to the small things that raise your energy and your optimism? Or do you screen that stuff out and focus on your negative odds?" That's an important decision that we all get to make basically every day.
Yeah. Well, you have in the book, Colonel Bob Brown gave a quote, said that faith indeed takes practice. Could you kind of walk us through that quote, please?
Yeah, Colonel Bob Brown at the time retired a few decades later as four-star General Robert Brooks Brown. Um, and he told a story of the worst day of his life as a military officer. Um, General Brown is a West Point grad. He spent 40 years in service to the country. He retired as the Pacific Command in charge of all Army units, Hawaii, Japan, Korea, etc., etc. Very big assignment. And he told a story of an experience in Iraq where a suicide bomber infiltrated the mess hall where his American soldiers and a group of Iraqi soldiers were having their dinner one December evening. That suicide bomber detonated his vest. There were over 20 casualties, over 100 wounded. 6 of those casualties were Colonel Brown's soldiers, and that made it the worst day of his life. Um, Brown himself was almost killed. He was thrown across the room by the bomb blast. Had the suicide bomber stood up from the table he was sitting at before detonating his vest, Colonel Brown probably would have been an additional casualty. But as terrible as that moment was, Brown and his soldiers had to go out on missions that very night and had to continue going out on those missions night after night after night after night until their mission to secure the possibility of an election in Iraq was completed. And so it's not just a matter of deciding to think a certain way and deciding to be optimistic when things are going well. You have to put that effort into your attitude even during the worst days of your life. And the quote he said, faith really takes practice. And you have to practice the right attitude, the right thought configuration, day after day, consistently, even during the worst days of your life.
Yeah.
It's a very, very sobering story. I hope none of your listeners are ever in that kind of position.
Yeah.
But just be prepared to sustain your attitude come, come the good days and come the bad days.
Yeah. Yeah. Building your mental bank account, as you talk in the book, I think is so important. And there's a lot to it, actually. It's actually, why don't you break that down, building your mental bank account?
Sure. The sense of certainty that we're talking about, that sense of certainty that allows you to be natural and authentic when you step into your performance arena, that certainty is the result, basically, of all the thoughts and opinions and memories that you hang on to. In a way, that certainty is derived from what is in a mental bank account. What's that collection, that repository of that reservoir of thoughts about your past, thoughts about how you think you are right now, and thoughts about how you want to be and how you want to perform and what you want your future to be like. All of those things lead up to your sense of certainty in a moment. And that mental bank account is a running total, just like your checking or savings account. It'll grow or it will diminish depending on what you put into it and take out of it. So when you consistently review your day and look at where you put in effort and what little successes you achieved and what kind of progress you're making, you're contributing, you're building that bank account, you're raising your balance. Every time you unnecessarily worry, unnecessarily doubt yourself, unreasonably fear a future, well, then now you're diminishing that bank account. So I think it's useful for a lot of people, especially a lot of people in the business world,
Yeah.
to think of their confidence in monetary terms. Think of it as an account. You have it. You're going to build it and then use it, or you're going to allow it to diminish and you're going to enter into a conversation or a performance um, from a position of weakness or lack. It's a clear choice that we all make day by day.
Yeah, it definitely, and then putting those positive things in the vault for when you're having a bad day to think, okay, this is how I won this one. This is how I won this one. I know in the book he talked about a baseball player that recorded everything, and he threw the bad ones. He threw them out. He goes, I know what I did wrong there. I need to see what I did right.
Yes,
And I think
and
that's very important.
yeah, it's that particular example. I think is very, very instructive. You know,
Yeah.
the, that particular player was one of the best hitters in baseball in his era,
Yeah.
and he made the specific practice of yes, every pitch that every at bat is videotaped. It's how you review it. I mean, your life is in front of you. How do you review your life? He was very deliberate in terms of I'm going to relook at all the pitches where I either made good contact with the ball or made a good decision about whether to swing or hold back. Okay? I'm going to make a separate tape of my mistakes, the pitches I should have swung at,
Yeah.
and the ones that I should not have swung at, and I'm throwing that in the garbage because I do not, there's no reason for me to watch myself looking like a fool swinging at somebody's curveball, right? That was the quote in the magazine article that really struck me. There's no point in me reminding myself of something or a series of somethings that I did wrong. Indeed, create this bank account of your small successes, of the effort that you've put in to get better. Create that account and build that. Because if you have that, then you can step in, you're much more likely to step into a negotiation with the sense of, okay, I'm enough. I got what it takes. I can do this. That's not the same as thinking that you have to walk into every negotiation and think, oh, I'm the greatest real estate professional in the world. I know everything about everything. This is definitely going to turn out in my favor. Nobody else can compare to my skills. No, that's, I think that's misleading.
Sure.
I think that can create a certain degree of sloppiness in terms of your preparation.
Mhm.
But the idea is that you do the preparations necessary, you trust that preparation, and you walk into the meeting, you open up the phone call with the sense of, I'm enough. I'm enough. I've got enough. I may not be perfect, but I'm good enough for this moment. And the willingness to cultivate that day in and day out is so valuable in today's busy and difficult world.
Yeah, I agree. You know what I see is a lot of newer agents and the negative self-talk. And you try and stop them from doing it because they're getting on the phones every day and they're just getting beat down. No, 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 don't call me again, leave me alone. And it beats them down. And next thing you kind of hear them start doubting themselves and talking bad about themselves. Um, that's hard. It's hard to listen to.
Oh,
It's
it's
tough.
very hard to listen to. I think I think what separates a lot of really good sales professionals is this sort of uh, Jim Carrey Lloyd type filter. You
Hmm.
know, okay, yeah, I got a rejection, big deal, I don't care. I got a rejection, big deal, don't care. I got a rejection, big deal, don't care. I Every one of those rejections is just getting me closer to the one person who's going to say yes.
Yeah.
You know, and I will learn from each call, maybe about making the next call a little better, but I'm not going to overstate the importance of a failure. I'm not going to invest a lot of emotion. Oh, geez, that didn't work. What's the matter with me? I'm going to save my emotion
Yeah.
for the one that I get. You know, this is both science and art, and it's an opportunity for human beings really to exercise their capacity for free will. Um, we
Yeah.
all got to do it, or else the world's just going to beat us down.
It's a process. We have an agent that she's been in the business about 6 weeks now. She was just putting her on the phones now, and this is her first week on the phone, and you could just I'm listening. I can hear her through the wall, and she's so nervous and so scared. And then she had one really good call yesterday, and they said, "Yes, I'd love to talk to you about selling my real estate." She came running out of the office. Yes, and
Well,
the
good.
rest of the day,
Yeah,
hey, how are you? She didn't
yeah,
have a problem on the phone at all. It just
good.
takes the little things, and you have
Yeah,
to keep moving forward.
it takes those little things, but make sure when you get those little things, that's what you put your emotion into.
Yeah,
Emotion is like glue for memories. You
yeah,
know, we can all remember things that happened years ago, decades ago, that had a significant emotional component. You know, our wedding day, for example. You know, I mean, that's a big moment, and you can remember where you were and who was around you and all kinds of details, but you probably don't remember what might have happened, say, a month ago on Tuesday, because there was nothing particularly emotional, you know?
Yeah.
So please, ladies and gentlemen, when you have a victory, celebrate it,
Yeah.
okay? Uh, we have to acknowledge that much of our socialization, when we get to be, I don't know, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th grade, we're kind of encouraged in some subtle and not so subtle ways. Hey, don't don't make a big deal about your win. You know, be modest about that. Grow up. Um, think about what it's like when you're a little kid and you finally hit a tennis serve well, or sink a foul shot, or boy, that moment where you finally got on the two-wheel bike without the training wheels and you took off. Intuitively, a kid knows that those things are difficult. And so the kid lights up when they happen. Yeah, look at me, mom. Look at me. Look at me. But we kind of train that out of our kids as they get older and older and older, to the point here we are in our 30s and 40s, and we don't allow anything good to reach down deep inside and lift us up. So please, ladies and gentlemen, let yourself be emotional
Yeah.
about the positive things, the helpful things, the constructive things in your life, and be careful about investing emotion into your setbacks and difficulties, because that level of emotion can kind of glue that memory into your mental bank account and draw it down.
Yeah, if you dwell on them, and I have a habit of doing that. I was looking at it in the beginning is, I'm learning from this and I dwell on it. And, there's only so much dwelling you can do. You've got to move forward. And, I just, I really learned from that. But, you know, as you were talking, I was thinking about, I call it the butterfly effect, right? So I had to get up and give a speech about a year ago. And I mean, my stomach was turning, the energy was all over the place. I was a hot mess. And, in the end, it was a waste of time because I got up there. It wasn't just a speech. I didn't know how to use the equipment. I had so many excuses. But, you know, can you go through that, that stomach turning, nervous? I looked at it all wrong. Then I read your book. I'm like, well, I wished I'd have read this before I did that speech. Can you touch
Yeah,
on that, please?
sure. We all have an autonomic nervous system, ladies and gentlemen. Uh,
Yeah.
a part of our nervous system that keeps our body working without us having to do pretty much anything. It keeps our heart beating, it keeps our lungs moving, it keeps our digestive process going. It's an automatic process. Okay. Now, one of the lesser known, lesser understood truths about this autonomic nervous system is that it's going to kick in to a slightly higher gear whenever it perceives that you're about to do something that's kind of important. Stepping into an unfamiliar setting, about to give a speech that has consequences, the importance that you give to an event is going to drive your autonomic nervous system up a little bit. Okay? That system has two basic pathways: a sympathetic pathway that energizes you, and a parasympathetic pathway that relaxes you. But when you're about to do something that's important, whether it's something important because you got to do it, like pay your taxes or have take an exam, or whether it's something that you want to do, like play in a big sporting event, your the sympathetic wing of your autonomic nervous system is going to become more active, and it's going to stimulate the production of adrenaline and some other hormones. And that adrenaline, those hormones are going to get spread all over your body, and it's going to make your heart beat faster. It's going to make your muscles twitch a little bit, and it's going to excite the hundreds of nerve cells in your stomach. Those nerves are going to vibrate a little more powerfully, and that makes your stomach wiggle like the wings of a butterfly.
Yeah.
And all that means is that your body is energizing itself so that you can be good at something. It's not a statement that you're unprepared. It's not a statement that the moment you're entering is too big for you. It's just your body's way of energizing you. It's putting more blood out into your muscles. It's opening up your eyes. Basically, your body is designed to produce a really neat state-of-the-art performance enhancing chemical, custom made for you, that's going to be delivered right when you need it, right when you can use it, and it doesn't cost anything. And unlike some other performance enhancing drugs, it's completely legal. So I urge everyone, when they feel the butterflies, when they feel the tension arising, when they're about to engage in an activity, I'm telling you, hey, say thank you, welcome it. This is just going to make me better. I know it feels a little weird. I know it feels unusual, but you're about to do something unusual. You're not going to get those butterflies when you're filling your car up with gas or brushing your teeth at night. An everyday activity does not require this extra investment of energy. But when you're about to do something important, something that matters, you're probably going to get this. So respect your body's wonderful ability to help you. Kind of look forward to getting a little bit nervous. And when the nervousness occurs, say thank you. Embrace it. You're going to be better off if you do.
Yeah, every pitch, our agents go into, there's a lot of nerves. And that's why I thought I really want to point this one out, because I think it's really important in our business, because we get to go on a pitch. There's a lot of time, money, our future in it. And we put all this pressure on. So we build up all this these nerves and butterflies. And, sometimes you get in there, your brain just shuts down. You want to say something, but it's tough. And so I thought that was a key point
But
to
yeah, the brain seems to shut down because you tell yourself, oh, I'm in an uncomfortable state.
yeah.
Trust that state. Think of that state as actually energizing you and making you better for the moment, rather than having the perspective that that nervous state is bad for you. It's a paradigm shift, like so many of the other things that we've been talking about. But if you really give it any long-term serious thought, you're going to come to the same conclusion. Oh, this can help me.
Yeah.
Great. Um, this has been a great conversation. I love this. Can we do this again sometime?
Well, we'll definitely get you back on, but I know I'm running. We've been holding you a long time, so thank you very much for taking the time to do this again. I think our viewers are going to want to have you back as soon as we can, and we'll keep going down this book. I mean, I've got so many notes that and I could keep going on for hours, but I know that we need to knock it off for the day.
Thank you, Joe. Best to you, best to your listeners. I look forward to more opportunities to share this wonderful stuff.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Zinsser. Thank you very much for taking the time. Hopefully, I can get you on here again soon. I want to give your book one last shout out for everybody to check out. It's going to be on my website. You can go to joekillinger.co. You can find it there and see all the other information that he has in the book. And if you enjoyed what we're saying, please give us a like. And if you haven't done so, make sure you subscribe.